Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. This is another video that I'm going to do. This is probably going to be more along the lines of how this channel is going to be in the future. I created this channel to kind of interact and inform people that follow my Facebook page or social media, kind of the state of the collection or the state of the season, state of the babies. So I want to be able to get on here, you know, in the future. I'm trying to catch up on a few videos that I really want to do now, but in the future this is going to be maybe like a once a week thing where I take you guys through the breeding season and, well, through the whole year round and let you guys know what I'm doing in my facility to produce these animals. But right now I have a whole rack here full of babies that I've produced this year. I've been very fortunate to have a good year. Produced a lot of different localities. Some localities were, you know, for the most part, they're all but lost from the hobby. So I had some really good luck this year, and I'm very fortunate to be able to not only add those to my collection, but or expand my groups, but also to offer those to other keepers. I wanted to, in this video, I wanted to kind of explain my methods and how I do things as far as selling babies. So, like I said, I was fortunate. I had a lot of different babies. I'm very fortunate to be able to work with a little bit more of the rare localities, some of the things that a lot of people aren't working with. And I'm really lucky to be able to do that, but the flip side to that is that it's supply and demand. I have a lot of people that have been following along with my social media, my Facebook, people that I've made friends with that have been waiting a long time for a lot of this stuff. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of these localities don't have a lot of babies. You know, I was fortunate enough to have a litter of Corn Islands this year. I had 4 babies. I had 2 last season and I had 4 this season, which gave me, unbelievably, against all odds, it gave me 3.3. But that leaves me with a very limited availability. And, you know, I have a lot of friends that have been with me and following me and supporting me for many years now. I have some people that have, you know, when I got those animals back in 2018, they said, you know, if you ever produce with them, I want to get a pair, and they've been following along ever since. So when people message me and they said, hey, I'm looking for a Corn Island, or I want to buy a Corn Island, I certainly appreciate that. I don't blame you, but unfortunately, you know, if I had 20 of them available right now, I could probably sell every one of them, you know, today. I think something that a lot of people need to keep in mind, especially being newer in the hobby, is that when you come across breeders that are trustworthy and highly recommended and respected, that you follow along with those people and you support those people, and, you know, you befriend those people, and sometimes it takes years to get something that you really want. You know, when something's this as rare as some of these are, you know, it takes a long time to acquire those, and I think rightfully so. It's not about money. I had somebody offer me an exorbitant amount of money for a couple of my snakes last year, and I turned it down. It's not about the money. So just keep that in mind when you're searching around and you're inquiring about different animals, especially if they're rare animals. That it's probably or likely not something that you can just send a message and be first on the list. So let me introduce this little guy. I had a litter of Rio Bravo Barranquilla Colombian boas this year. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, but this is just this is actually the only one out of all of them that isn't in shed right now. But the colors on these are just unbelievable. And I don't know if it's picking up on the camera. I hope it is, but the colors are just unbelievable. I credit a lot of that to my friend Buddy Young, who I acquired these animals from. Barranquilla boas of this, what I call quality. I mean, there's a lot of breeders out there that have beautiful animals, and it's all, I guess it's all about what you're looking for in your own personal collection. But you'd be hard pressed to find a more colorful group of Rio Bravo Barranquillas than these. I'm just really happy with how they're coming along. Something else to consider on that note is specifically with Barranquilla boas. You know, Barranquilla is kind of a loose term. Many of these animals were exported from Barranquilla, Colombia, but all Barranquillas are not the same. That just means that, you know, at some point a bag of Barranquilla Colombian boas came in, but that doesn't mean that they're these. These started out as Rio Bravo Barranquilla Colombias, and they were selectively bred for color, at least in my collection, to have just these outstanding salmons and purples and pinks, and I really hope it's coming out on the camera. So, getting to the point of the video, and at the end of the video I'm going to have a little bonus. I'm going to try to showcase some of the more rare stuff that I had this month and just kind of show it off, because really there's nowhere you can go on YouTube or social media for the most part and see what these animals actually look like. They're that rare. So as far as acquiring boas from me goes, I don't do lists. It just gets really, really hard to keep track of who is first and who is second and who gets pick of this and who gets pick of that. It's just a recipe for disaster. I don't do payments. You know, I think it's one thing if you say, hey, can I give you half now and half in a week or half in a couple weeks? But as far as long-term payment plans, I just don't do them, because anything could happen. Anything could happen. I've done it a couple of times, and it's almost guaranteed that if you don't have the money for this animal, it's almost guaranteed that your brakes are going to go out, your transmission's going to mess up, your brother's, cousin's, aunt's, uncle's relative is going to pass away. You know, something is going to happen, and you're going to message me and you're going to say, is there any way I could get my deposit back? You know, it's just the nature of it. It's a fact of it. Like I said, if you're willing to give half down and the other half in a week or so, if you're close, maybe you just need to move some money around, that's fine. You know, I can completely appreciate that. But as far as long-term payments go, this is not the place for that. So that's just kind of how I do that. I don't do lists. It's very hard to keep up with the messages that I get. I've got, you know, according to my message, according to Messenger, I have dang near every one of these babies sold. But we all know that in reality, that's not how it plays out. So I can't go back and go through all the messages and all the exchanges and try to figure out who messaged me first and which ones they were interested in, and this one wants a male, this one wants a pair, this one wants a female. I just don't have the time for that. So I say all that to say that, you know, when these animals are ready, I feed them. The way I do things is they have to have at least 3 meals minimum with no issues, you know, processing and passing the meal. So I start all my babies on frozen thawed. I don't give them the opportunity to be spoiled on live. Worst case scenario, if I can't get them eating, I'll definitely resort to feeding live. It's very difficult for me to get live mice here. I have one pet shop in town, and it's very hit and miss if they're going to have any at all. And so I have a really hard time getting live animals, or live feeders. So I always default to frozen thawed. And in my opinion, if I can get them to eat the frozen thawed and I can get them to aggressively eat 3 meals of frozen thawed, they're probably that feeding instinct is turned on, and they're probably going to be good when you get them. The last thing I want to do is to send out a baby and have whoever's receiving that have trouble getting them to feed or something like that. So I feel like if I can get you know, 3 in a row aggressive meals on frozen thawed, it's probably a solid animal, and it's probably going to do well in your collection. So that's kind of my thought process on that. So the state of my baby rack is that most of the babies have had 1 meal. Some of them have had 2 meals. I generally, when I'm trying to start babies, I take out, you know, I learned the hard way. You know, I had 30 babies to feed their first meal, and I took out 30 mice, and 15 of them ate, and so I ended up throwing away 15 feeders. So I learned that the hard way, and so now what I do, especially as close together as these litters were, is I'll take, you know, 20 feeders out, see who will eat that, mark who eats, and then I'll go down the rack. You know, the next day I'll take 20 more out. Maybe try some of the ones that didn't eat, continue on down the rack until I get to the bottom. And then really usually I just give it a week or so. I wait a week or so before. I don't try to feed every day, you know, to see if, oh, today are they going to take it. It just ends up being a lot of work and a lot of wasted feeders. So I'll kind of go down through the rack over the course of a day or two and offer meals, and some of them take it right away, some of them don't. And some of that depends on the locality. You know, a lot of the island boas tend to be a little bit more shy, not quite as aggressive when it comes to feeding. A lot of the Colombians like these, I don't remember, I think I had 16 babies, and every one of them took it the first night. I mean, aggressively took it. They're just excellent feeders. Some of them, the Argentines that I tried to feed last night, their first meal, I got 4 out of 6 of them to eat. The other 2 just weren't having it. They acted like they wanted to. One of them acted like it wanted to. I just couldn't get it to pass that threshold and strike. The other one was very defensive, hissing, and sometimes I can use that to my advantage. A lot of times when they hiss, they open their mouth, and I can kind of slide that mouse into its mouth, and it'll just kind of start doing what it does. You know, it'll just kind of click. It won't even strike. It'll be hissing with its mouth open, and I'll just kind of set it in its mouth there, and it'll kind of close down slowly, and then the next thing I know, it just starts eating it, you know. And you can use those characteristics to your advantage. If you have a lot of the Tarahumara babies that I have right now are kind of on the hissy side, and they're on the defensive side, and I can use that to my advantage to get them to strike. Sometimes they'll do, you know, some defensive strikes where they'll just, you know, hit the mouse. It's not a feeding strike, it's just a defensive strike, and after 2 or 3 of those hits, something will click in their mind, and they'll hit it, and they'll just hold on, and then I'll let it go, and then they'll just kind of slowly wrap it up. This is very much a psychological game. Keeping animals in general, but keeping boas and getting babies started is very much a game of psychology when it comes to getting them started. A lot of this stuff is instinct. Some of them it's stronger than others, but a lot of times you have to work with the animal and try to manipulate the animal or the boa to do what not only you want it to do, but what you know it needs to do. So many times I'll get frustrated, a little bit frustrated, and I'm like, how in the world would you live in the wild? You know, I get so mad, or not mad, but just frustrated, because I'll be up here at midnight trying to get babies to start, and it's just kind of funny that it's like, how would you survive in the wild? But they do, and I guess that's why there's so many. You know, these boas have 30 babies, 20 babies, whatever it is, and ultimately, in reality, they don't all survive. So, but that's, I guess now maybe I'm just rambling, but you know, I thought about it quite a bit last night, what I wanted this. You know, I kind of fell into this little hole where I'm like, I need to get followers, I need to get subscribers, I need to, you know, spread the word, and really, you know, I thought about what I wanted to get out of this channel, and being a YouTuber is not my goal. Being a YouTuber, being popular, being on, you know, whatever, that's not my goal. These are not even necessarily instructional videos. if you follow along, you're going to get a lot of information. You're going to get a lot of how I do things, how I establish my babies, how I cool my room, how I introduce males in the breeding season, what I'm looking for, it'll be just kind of a weekly update of what's happening here in the room and how I'm processing and doing things. And I think that will be a benefit to a lot of people. I listen to and follow along with very experienced breeders, and I learn something new all the time from them. I've got a pretty good routine down here, but I enjoy listening to these podcasts with these breeders on there, because I learned that, heck, I never even thought about trying that way. Another thing I'll suggest to people that are newer in the hobby is study some other species. Talk to people that do other species. There's some interesting ways, like in the green tree pythons. A lot of green tree pythons are particularly difficult to get started on their first meals, and some of the techniques and the stuff that the green tree guys do can apply to other species, can apply to boas and stuff like that. So I suggest that you branch out if you are into boas. There's something to be learned from watching other people with other species do things. So I guess that's about it for my rambling. I went over how I do. Oh, well, I don't even know if I even finished off on that thought. I'm kind of everywhere. But when these babies are ready, as they become ready to go and they're established, and I feel confident that they're going to thrive in their new home, I'm going to put them available, and it'll pretty much be a first come, first serve. I do have some people that are patiently waiting, like my first Suriname litter. I didn't have enough to go around last time, and I have people that are still sitting here waiting on the people that didn't get them last time. As far as pricing goes, I'm horrible at pricing. I generally try to get a feel for where everything is in the hobby, but I am generally going to be a little more expensive than everywhere else, and I'm okay with that. You don't have to buy from me. I feel like what I have to offer, is more than what, not everybody. There are some fantastic breeders out there that are every bit as good as I am, but I had a gentleman tell me the other day that he's seen, the Surinames. Well, I've seen Pokegons on Morph Market for $700. Well, that may be, but is that, Billy Joe's Reptile Emporium that took that Suriname in on a trade that got it third hand from someone else? My animals here in this facility are as accredited as they can possibly be. They're as accredited as anybody else could have in their facilities that didn't bring them in themselves from the wild. So as far as locality goes, I have that on my side. And service after the sale, healthy animals. I've shown you guys the room. This is a clean facility. I have never, since I built this house 4 years ago, built this room 4 years ago, I've not had one mite in this room. I don't take in animals. The last animals that I brought in were a group of hog islands from Vin Russo, and that was 2 years ago, I believe. And then it was probably a year or two before that since I brought anything in. So I don't go to reptile shows. I don't go to these small reptile shows. I don't trade with people. I don't bring animals. I don't buy and sell and swap and all this stuff. I've never had any disease. I've had many of my babies tested as I send them out. I've never had anybody come back and tell me that they tested positive for anything. You will not get a mite from me. I still recommend that you exercise quarantine practices. I think that's just a healthy practice to do. But if you end up with a mite in your collection, it 100% didn't come from me, because I do not have mites in this room. And like I said, service after the sale, and I'm not really trying to talk myself up. I'm just trying to describe what you're getting when you buy an animal from me. Not only am I here to help you through your, if maybe breeding's your ultimate goal, maybe just a pet is your ultimate goal. Either one is fine, and you've pretty much got me for the lifetime, or at least for my lifetime. So, service after the sale. I have a friend of mine that got Suriname from me a couple years back. It was my last litter. This was a repeat breeding. And her animal didn't make it. She had some issues with that animal, and that happens, and that's understandable. I don't think it had anything to do with what she was doing. She's a established keeper, and I think she knew exactly what she was doing. She just had some issues, and she's a friend of mine now. We've been friends for years now, and I'm sending her $1,400 Pokegron for free. I'm not charging. I feel bad that she had the animal, and she paid for the animal, and it didn't thrive. It didn't do well, and so I'm replacing it. You're not going to get that from Bob's Reptile Superstore, okay? And no offense to Bob if your name is Bob. That's a completely random name that I thought of, but you're not going to get that from these guys on Morph Market, okay? So yes, are my animals a little more expensive? Possibly. Obviously, I have to be realistic with my pricing. I can't price myself out. I can't keep all of these forever. But when you receive an animal from me, you're going to receive a well-established, well-started, healthy, disease, mite, parasitic-free animal that's been very well-started and should, in all reality, thrive for you in your collection. So I think that there is a cost associated with that, and I think that I try to be fair. I don't want to price gouge anybody. I'm not trying to, the fact that I'm sending out a free boa, that doesn't mean I'm going to do that every time. That just means that in this particular scenario, I think that she deserves to have the animal that she paid for. And she doesn't, so I'm going to make that happen as soon as I can. And that's what you're buying. In this hobby, somebody told me, a good friend of mine that's been in this hobby for a long time, told me that who you buy from is every bit as important as the animals that you're buying. And I think that is 100% true. So many people buy with their eyes, they buy with price tags. Somebody inquired about one of my Surinames the other day, and I told them the price. I said they'll probably be within $1,000 to $1,500, depending on color and pattern. And I haven't really decided. They might be $900. They might be $800. I don't know. But off the top of my head, I don't really make that decision until they're ready to go, and I look at them and I say, okay, this is what this is, and this is how much I want to get for it. But I told her the price. She said okay, and then she started sending me screenshots of other animals that were for sale that were cheaper, and supposedly the same thing. And I don't think she did it on as she didn't mean any harm by it, I don't think. But it's like, that animal is different than this animal. I'm sorry. If you call it arrogant, you call it whatever you want. I don't know. But all of these boas are valuable. All of these boas deserve love. They deserve care. They deserve a good home. But depending on what you're looking for, they are not all created equal. And I'm very proud of the animals that I have, and so I price them accordingly. And like I said, you're getting, like I said in the other video, you're getting, when you buy from me, we're starting a relationship, and that relationship will go like any other relationship. It will go as far or as near as you want it to go. So a lot of people, I send them an animal, never hear from them again. A lot of people, I send them an animal and I hear just enough for them to buy another animal. I sent out a type B Colombian the other day to a guy that's bought several animals from me. We don't have we don't have conversations. We don't have a relationship, I guess. But he comes back and he buys more, and I appreciate that. And, but the opportunity this is the foundation for the opportunity of a relationship, business and friendship. So that's just how I do things, and that hopefully gives you a little better idea of what to expect when you're looking to buy an animal from me. Well, I think I've rambled on long enough, so I'm going to get some of these out. I think I'm going to show you guys maybe a Corn Island baby, and I'm going to show you guys a West Snake K baby, because I produced both of those this year, and a lot of people don't have the opportunity to see those anywhere else because they're that scarce. I do know, I think Warren Booth is expecting a litter of West Snake Ks, but both of those localities are almost gone from the hobby. So if I can show them off and let you guys see something here that you can't really necessarily see anywhere else, I'm happy to do that. So stay tuned, be right back. All right, hopefully I'm in focus here. So this one that I have here first is a West Snake K. This is a baby that was produced here this year. And let's see if I can get him in focus here. There we go. These are just really pretty, really kind of hypo looking babies. They got a lot of oranges, some grays. They're almost like, I hate comparing localities because different people see different things, but let's see if we can get back a little further. There you can see his head. He might strike at me, I don't know. He's just a little baby. He's kind of zoomed in on me here. You can see the tail. These are West Snake Ks. It's really pretty. And from my experience, my adults look very much like these babies. Like, kind of what you see is what you get. This is the first litter of these I've ever had. I don't have a huge sample size to speak from, but my adults look like big versions of this. For the most part, the breeding pair that I have came from Vin Russo. These are very, very tiny boas. The girl, the mother of this litter, I would have never in a million years expected her to have 5 babies. She had 5 babies for me. She is a 21, so she's 5 years old. And she had 5 babies. I would have never guessed that there was 5 babies in there. I thought maybe 2 or 3 babies because she's just that small. But I paired her together with a male and had a successful litter of them. So these are just really cool, really pretty, really small locality. It's something that you just, I do know of several people, a couple people that have these. I think Vin was pretty limited on what he let go of, but very rare in the hobby. Very, very, very hard to come by. West Snake K. Let's see if you can see the head there. Kind of focused in. All right, so that's the West Snake K boa. I think I'll probably have a pair of these available. I think. They're not going to be cheap, just so you know. I'll keep the whole litter. It's fine with me. But if this is something that interests you, just know that these are extremely rare in the hobby, and they will be priced accordingly. In my mind, I think there's some value to buying in a project. There's so many projects in the reptile hobby that are just gone. And we always have this conversation about where did these animals go, and I think moving forward, an important thing to consider is who's buying these animals. And I think if you're willing to spend the money on them, you're likely to take better care of them, and you're likely to reproduce them. And I think that's what we need most. So let me know if it's something you're interested in. Just know that this is definitely going to be on the higher end of anything that I sell. So, all right, I'll be right back. Let me go get you a Corn Island. All right, guys, so this is a Corn Island boa. You can see that belly there. Super red. These are just absolutely beautiful. Beautiful boas. Hopefully it's staying in focus. She doesn't know whether to run or whether to fight me or what. I think I mentioned earlier in one of my other videos maybe, you know, I just don't have the time to sit here and spend with all these boas, all these babies, to kind of settle them down. Maybe I can get a good. These are just an absolute pleasure to keep. I was fortunate, like I said earlier, I had 2 males last year, and then I had 1 male and 3 females this year, which was about like hitting the Corn Island lottery, because that gives me 3.3. These will not be for sale. If I'm going to get rid of any of them, they're already spoken for. This is one of those things, you know, like I said earlier, if I had 20 of them to sell today, they'd probably all sell out today. So the father from this litter, where are you going? The father and mother from this litter was produced by Tommy Carpenter. My litter from last year, the mother was produced by Chris Wolf. He worked closely with Ben Russo. He had a lone female available in 2018, and I bought it, and then later on acquired a male from Tommy. So the litter from last year was a Tommy Carpenter, Chris Wolf. The litter from this year is both Tommy Carpenter. So these are just super, super cool. All right, guys, I guess I'm going to leave you off with that. I've got, I don't know if I mentioned, I've got some Tarahumara that will be becoming available. I've got 2 litters of Suriname, Pokeground Surinames, most of which I would say are probably spoken for, but I'll post them available when they're ready. I've got, what else do I have? I had a couple of Guyanas this year. I had some Tamalupus. I had a litter of Tamalupus. I had a litter of Tarahumara. I had a litter of the Barranquillas that I showed earlier. What else did I have? I had 1 Cancun. Unfortunately, there's a lot of heartbreak that goes along with this hobby. And I had a Cancun female that gave me a lot of poorly formed babies. So that didn't really work out, but did have a Cancun litter. And I guess maybe that's all the litters I had. Costa Rican. I do have 1 pair of Costa Ricans left. If anybody's interested, they're pure Costa Ricans, 1st generation, captive born and bred, U.S. captive born and bred. I do have 1 pair of those left available. And like I said earlier, I'll be posting these, you know, available as they become available, and that'll be really when you got to jump on it. So it's going to be pretty much first come, first serve. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed this. It's kind of a longer format, but this is what I want this channel to be, is just a once a week me getting on here talking about what's happening in the facility, in the collection, the babies, the breeding. Definitely going to throw in tips and tricks on how I keep my room, how I fluctuate my temperature, my feeding, and just hopefully let people have a way to follow along and either learn from or compare how they do things, and just keep updated with what's happening. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys have had a good weekend. Hope you have a good week, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks.